Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Poking Around Phoenixville. I'm Lou Beccaria, and thanks for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time. Well, today we have the pleasure of talking with Joanne Klein, who is the Executive Director of the Montgomery County Department of Aging and Adult Services. And we're going to be talking about the issues that are confronting people who are older citizens in today's world, and the services that are available in our Montgomery County, Chester County region. So Joanne, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you for having me and dedicating a show to aging. We appreciate that.
No problem. Well, tell us a little bit, before we get into the main text of the show, a little bit about your own background. How did you get into this kind of service, into aging?
When I moved to Montgomery County, my first job actually was as the director of a Meals on Wheels program, and then into senior center services, and working for Montgomery County now for 30 years, different types of jobs. I've seen quite a bit of change in aging, and I've been the executive director now for about 12 to 13 years. Mm-hmm. So we've just evolved. I have aged into the business, so to speak.
During this 30 years or so, yes. How has the field of adult and aging services changed, and what issues have come about now that maybe didn't exist before?
Well, it's been interesting to watch because in Montgomery County, for example, we have over 225,000 folks over the age of 55. And so we're seeing the aging of the baby boomers, folks like myself now that are beginning to think about their own aging, mm-hmm. and looking at ways that our communities can prepare for that. In many ways we have, and our services have evolved over time. And yet in other ways, we're seeing waiting lists for certain types of services and different types of changes that are coming along, different types of services we need to provide along the way, especially in the area of caregiver support. We're mm-hmm. seeing more caregivers than ever turning to an Office on Aging or local resources and really looking for some assistance.
Mm-hmm. How about the services for older people who have disabilities?
I think all of us are very concerned as we age in terms of what kinds of disabilities might there be in our own selves or our families, and how do we prepare for that? There are in-home services available because our main goal as an Office on Aging, whether you live in Chester County, Montgomery County, or in any area, we're really focused on keeping folks at home, making our communities aging friendly so that we can stay at home and as independent and active as we want to be for as long as we can be. So we bring in those services. We bring in personal care, home delivered meals, otherwise called Meals on Wheels. Many people relate to that, of course. We're also looking at different types of services that folks may need, lawn care, home preparation, meal preparation, and different types of home supportive services, because everyone wants to stay at home and independent. So when you're disabled, we're looking at ways to make your home more accessible, making it easier in terms of perhaps putting a bathroom on the first floor, ramps that may be needed, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And we're looking at the bigger picture too. I think in Montgomery County and all across this region, we're looking at the kind of housing that we're building. You know, should we be building 3-story houses for 55-plus communities when in reality, many of us, if we turn 75 or 80, are not going to want to walk up 2 flights of stairs every day. We're going to want one level of housing. I don't want to do
that now.
Yes, exactly. So we're trying to make the housing more accommodating for us as we age, whether we are disabled now or not. So we're trying to be a little proactive in that area.
Yeah. Over this period of time, the time that you've spent in this field, has the role of government changed at all?
Yes, it has. Government actually can never do it alone. We all know that. And the financial situation, not just for government, but in the private sector, of course, has changed in recent years. And that's really put a squeeze on the services we're able to provide. Waiting lists are growing and that type of thing. So as someone that works in the public sector, we know we have to reach out to the public and private coordination that is needed to really collaborate in building new services or really maintaining what we have. So we're really looking at it as a partnership now. Okay. And government sees its role as supportive, but not the be-all and end-all. We're really trying to work with others in local communities.
Now, I know a number of years ago, Joanne, that you were involved in a project that was funded by the North Penn Community Health Foundation called the Boomerang Project.
Absolutely.
Tell us about that and the effect that that's had on senior services in Montgomery County.
I see that really as the best example of a public and private partnership that I have experienced, at least in my time. And the Phoenixville Community Health Foundation was actually a part of that as well. We had 5 foundations that worked together with county government and nonprofits out in the community to begin first to look at our senior centers. What were they providing? Is it the kind of thing that boomers are going to want? Are you going to want that noon meal and bingo after lunch, or are you going to want the salad bar in the computer center where you can walk in and just enjoy a different type of experience? And thankfully, that project really steered us in the right direction. Many of our senior centers now are more community centers. They're community focused. They've brought in different types of funding, different types of activities, and such an exciting menu, really, of activities that you can participate in. You can walk in and have yoga or Tai Chi. You can have any type of a coffee cafe kind of approach. And that is so much different than the traditional senior center services were.
Yeah.
So I would urge folks to really support their local senior centers and really look at the different changes that have been taking place as a result of the Boomerang project.
Yeah, great. My guest is Joanne Klein, and she is the Montgomery County Executive Director of the Department of Aging and Adult Services. And we're talking about the services available and also the issues that, that abound now for older citizens. You have a new program in Montgomery County that's called the Navigate program. It's a tongue twister for me. Navigate program.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Well, you are not the only one that has difficulty saying or spelling that program. I will tell you how it came about. Our human service directors in Montgomery County have formed a cabinet. And together we were looking at ways we could deliver the human services in Montgomery County. At the same time, we had new commissioners, chaired by Josh Shapiro, who as chairman of the commissioners had been a state representative for many, many years. And in doing so, he was very familiar with constituent services, someone walking in the door with a problem and not knowing where to turn. So he wanted to make sure that in Montgomery County, we were able to offer the best kind of service. Someone who could be a navigator and an advocate. So he put the two together and it became a Navigate with a C. So the entire program is called Community Connections, but the Navigate is the individual who will be available in the Pottstown offices, Norristown, Lansdale, and Willow Grove areas to be able to help families with any kinds of complex needs. And you asked earlier about how things have changed. I think the change in human services or in aging has to do with complexity. I think in so many ways there are complex situations that come along that are far more involved, and so it takes someone to really navigate through a lot of different types of systems to get families the help they need. So the Navigate program will begin probably by March, we hope. We are just in the process of hiring the staff now, so this is a brand new concept.
Is this a program that people have to pay for?
No, it is not. It is absolutely part of Montgomery County government. We're offering this to the public. We are going to adapt it as we go along, and we are hoping to partner not just with all of the collaborative agencies out there that exist. We have human service collaboratives in each region of Montgomery County that exist now, but we're hoping to partner with other folks that perhaps we hadn't anticipated, so that the human services through Montgomery County will truly be integrated into the communities.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the human service collaboratives. That's kind of a unique concept.
It is.
in
It
offering
is.
health and human services, particularly from the government side.
Absolutely, and I really am very proud of Montgomery County and their history. I think 25 years ago, I remember we had consortia, long-term care consortium that existed, and there were a few collaborative groups that existed of human service providers across Montgomery County. But within the last 10 years, they developed into regional groups that actually represent over 300 nonprofit agencies across the county. And this includes hospitals, school districts, human services as part of the public sector in Montgomery County, but also the private sector. And so we have a multitude of agencies working together, knowing each other, knowing each other's faces, and being able to call each other with any kinds of problems or concerns they might have. And it's really helped, I think, bring our human service system together and actually more advanced than it would have been otherwise. So we really enjoy our collaboratives and hope they continue.
And the collaborative, I guess, just by the definition of the word, would involve the governmental services, nonprofit services.
It does.
And you even have some foundations involved in it too.
We
right?
do have foundations involved in that as well, and especially in the North Penn region, they've been very strong in support of the local collaboratives. And I think it's because we all identify that this is the strength of where it needs to be. Collaboration and community working together.
Yeah. Is that one of the big changes over the 30 years? Is there more
Huge.
collaboration than there used to be?
I think so. The communication is far better than it was before, and that is really person to person, agency to agency, working together for the good of the people that we're serving. That's been a really wonderful part about Montgomery County.
Our viewing area actually spans obviously into Montgomery County, all the way out to the Schwenksville area. Protective services, people that may live out in that area who have some concerns. First of all, tell us about protective services and what it does and what it provides, and then how people can access it.
Oh, well, I thank you for asking about that. Protective services is one area of concern that I think we have seen grow and change over the last 30 years. And protective services, by law, through the Older Americans Act began protective services, but the Older Adult Protective Services statute here in Pennsylvania defines that any area agency on aging, whether you're in Chester County, Montgomery County, Delaware, Philadelphia, any county in the southeastern region, if you know or suspect that anyone might be abused or neglected, or might even have some self-care issues where they're not caring for themselves properly and they might be at risk. We really want to know about those situations, and it's very important that we consult on those. We're seeing an increase in financial exploitation as money becomes tight and families have been living together. Sometimes there are abuses that occur, and we do need to know about that for the protection of the older person. We also have one thing that's changed and that's new is that we've been very fortunate to have a good orphans court in Montgomery County that helps us with guardianships when cases need to go to that last level. And Judge Murphy in Montgomery County has begun an elder justice roundtable that brings together the district attorney, the public defender's office, many nonprofits out there, as well as the courts, to really look at how we can resolve issues and how we can prevent issues. And that is right in keeping with our goals at the Office on Aging, because we are very concerned about talking to families about planning ahead. If you really don't plan ahead and look at the resources that are available, who is going to be power of attorney, who's going to make decisions as someone ages, sometimes you don't have those choices later when a crisis hits. So we really urge folks to start planning ahead to avoid protective services if possible.
We're going to come back to that, but we're going to take a commercial break right now, okay?
Great.
Our guest is Joanne Klein, who is the Montgomery County Director of the Department of Aging and Adult Services. We're going to take a break to hear from our sponsor, and when we come back, you want to hear more, so stay with us.
We live in a world of banks that are too big to fail. Small banks are acquired by mega banks, and then you and your money are stuck in the middle. But it's different here. At Phoenixville Federal, we are the last community bank standing. We have over 100 years experience investing in this community, and we truly care about what happens in our town. So when you do your banking with us, your dollars are helping to grow our local economy, because we invest in local businesses and families that make up this great community.
Hi, welcome back to Poking Around Phoenixville. I'm Lou Beccaria, and we have the pleasure today of talking with Joanne Klein, who is the Director of the Montgomery County Department of Aging and Adult Services. When we broke for commercial, Joanne, we were talking about protective services. I think it's probably very important for people to know that if they suspect abuse or neglect of an older person, and they call the proper agency, that they do that, they can do it anonymously, right?
Absolutely.
And they don't have to be afraid of being sued.
Absolutely.
So could you go into that a little bit?
Absolutely. In fact, we would encourage folks to call. Sometimes it's not even a report for protective service, it's a concern. And we urge people to reach out in their community with their church members, their family members, if there's any kind of need that they may have, to certainly call us. If it rises to the level of abuse or neglect, exploitation, abandonment, any of the things under protective services, we will follow through with an investigation. However, at all times, due to the law, we absolutely protect the reporter. So it is anonymous. Our concern is really working on behalf of the victim. We want to make sure that we are protecting them and making sure that they have the right type of lifestyle, the right type of setting in which they can age and be doing so safely. In fact, we have a 1-800 number in our county. It's 1-800-734-2020 that folks can report 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And after hours, we have folks who will go out on any emergency. So we do work together with a whole network of providers, nursing homes, different folks who are working together to protect older people.
Right. And every county has that kind of capability.
Every county does. And in fact, it is a requirement by law. And I should give out some important numbers that your folks may want to know about. For example, I know you cover the Pottstown area.
Yes.
We have a Pottstown area number, which is 610-327-9203. And in Chester County, if folks have concerns, they can certainly call the Chester County Services for the Aging at 610-344-6350.
Good. Okay. Let's move on to another aspect of senior services. How can older adults or people as they're getting older prepare themselves for their later years from a financial standpoint, a health standpoint, even an educational standpoint or a social standpoint?
Right. That is a really tough question to answer because there are so many aspects that you need to consider. And I think all of us who are baby boomers, for example, are really searching for those answers right now. And as we found in the Boomerang Project, a lot of us are not even sure where we want to live, how we want to live, how long will we be working. A lot of times that's driven by financial issues. So it really is good to sit down with a planner, a financial planner, and really talk about what are your resources. Can you retire at a decent age to really go out and enjoy life? And are you able to do that? Or do you need to work a little bit longer? And we're finding that boomers are now finding they do need to work a few more years to be prepared. But it is also time to start talking to your family and having those conversations about where you're going to live and who's going to make those decisions. We have some materials available at the Office on Aging, and they can always contact us to really talk about what kinds of checklists are available. And we have checklists for financial information to begin to gather together. We have a file folder, for example, that we offer to folks that allows you to keep all of this information together and begin to plan. Very important.
I guess another important thing would be, too, if people can afford it, to look into long-term care insurance.
Absolutely. Long-term care insurance is very important. I have found out from a personal perspective, my parents went into a continuing care retirement community, which normally you would think would provide everything as you age, and it has. It's done a very wonderful job for them. However, they also kept up their long-term care insurance, which is now paying for the in-home care that's needed, personal care, where folks are coming in to help with different kinds of activities. My mother is legally blind, so it's helping her with everything from reading the mail to doing different types of household types of activities. Very important to have that protection if you can. Yes.
Now, socially, I guess one of the things we hear about with older people is that they get isolated. Okay.
Yes.
In order to, I guess,
Yes.
keep a good mental outlook in older age, one needs to be social.
Absolutely. In fact, I will tell you my favorite story is talking to a 104-year-old at our recent centenarian event, and I asked, this gentleman had been coming back for 3 years in a row. Every year we offer the opportunity for our centenarians to come together, and the wisdom in their stories are amazing. But he said the one thing that you can do is just keep active, mentally, socially, and physically, and just get out there, even if you don't feel like doing much. So we offer opportunities for that.
Yeah.
There are numerous volunteer opportunities through the Retired Senior Volunteer Program, through your local senior center. And I think everyone needs to just explore what they want to do. You know, explore your passion and then make it happen. And you need to continue to work at that as you get older.
Well, I guess instead of looking at yourself, for example, as 85 years old, look at it as 85 years young.
Yes, and at a centenarian event, that's easy to do. But in places like Phoenixville, for example, it's very easy. It's a walkable community where you have lots of opportunities to go out and get involved in your community. So many different events going on. So I think that's a really good piece of advice for folks.
Joanne, with the coming of the Affordable Care Act now,
Yes.
how has that helped seniors in terms of their ability to have access to health care?
We're still waiting to see how that's going to evolve. There have been many changes, and we have some concerns also with regard to the Medicaid funding and so forth. I'm not really sure how to answer your question yet because it's still evolving. But we are very hopeful that it's going to help us to offer more to older adults that are in need in the community, because we have been seeing those waiting lists growing. We're very concerned about access to health care, very concerned about having folks have not only a good primary care physician, but all of the other supportive services that they need. And I think it is time that we do have some changes to our healthcare system. It's been desperately needed.
Yeah. My guest is Joanne Klein, who is the director of the Montgomery County Department of Aging and Adult Services. What is the biggest challenge that you have, Joanne, as the director now, as running a department in this economic atmosphere that we're in for the last 4 or 5 years since the downturn in the economy? How's that affected trying to provide services?
I think the real challenge has been financial. Many of us in government have been used to certain types of government funding being available. And it still is. It is still there for us, but it has changed. The requirements have changed. The amount of the funding has changed. We've had to reach out for support in new areas. We've had to look for new ways to provide services. Something like Innovations Home Care, which allowed 4 counties to come together and create a different type of service so that a county agency could begin to actually raise funds from a nonprofit perspective, is one way that we've tried to adjust that, because all of us in this region are very concerned about the limited financial resources at a time when our aging population is growing and growing in complexity, and the waiting lists have grown quite a bit. In Montgomery County alone, we have 200 folks waiting for basic personal care in their homes.
Wow.
Just a bath, home-delivered meal, something like that. So we're looking at a more disabled population, greater numbers, and limited resources. That's the biggest challenge, I think, that we've seen.
I know one of the points that we covered in the radio show that we did was the whole issue about you know, developing a greater sense of community and looking out for older people, and rather than just being isolated, and having a sense of caring for your neighbor and so forth.
Yes, that is truly my passion. For the last 2 4-year plans, have named it Creating a More Aging-Friendly Montgomery County, because I believe we need to do that. I think we all need to work in partnership, and I think we need to bring our communities together, and that involves the municipalities, the local governments, as well as county government, but also the churches, the nonprofits, the schools, the hospitals. Everyone can work together to look at their own communities and see if we're doing the best job possible for folks as they age. Are we offering housing opportunities that are close to hospitals and transportation? and all of the access to shopping and different types of lifestyle needs that folks would have. We need to start looking at that in a broader perspective.
Joanne, as you talk to people, older people around Montgomery County, Chester County, what is their major concern as people growing old?
We actually surveyed the needs in Montgomery County, and we were very fortunate. We surveyed, I believe it was over 1,000 folks, and the needs that came back are actually very similar to the way they were decades ago. However, we see more needs now for financial consideration. Folks that are making choices between paying for their medications, paying for food on the table, a heating bill, housing opportunities, health care. All of these things come together at a time where it's really beginning to be a problem for them. But beyond that and health care, it's the basics. It's where do you live? What kind of housing is going to be appropriate? And all of the access to services. That's a real concern. And the number one concern is one you mentioned earlier, becoming disabled. And what will happen? And will the services be there for them? So part of my job is to really work with others to make sure that we really have a comprehensive system that's well coordinated in every area of the county so that we can be there for folks.
Do you find, Joanne, that seniors are worried that their own family members won't be there to take care of them?
It has
And maybe that's a
changed.
message we can get out to our viewers is step up and take care of your elderly family members.
It is an issue, and I think caregiving has changed dramatically in years as women are now working and families are very involved in a variety of different activities. I do believe that caregiving itself is different. In some ways, families are coming together and living together, multiple generations. We're seeing the fastest growing segment of the caregiving population being grandparents that are caring for grandchildren and great-grandchildren at a time when they thought that they were finished with that. And perhaps financially and in terms of their own health, they have some concerns. So we are really looking at that population as somebody who's going to need support moving forward. It is about supporting families and about families supporting each other and being aware of the needs that someone will have as they age.
Yeah.
You're right.
Great. We just have a few seconds left, but I'd like to give you an opportunity to maybe publicize those numbers again that you gave before.
Absolutely. In fact, in Montgomery County, please call 610-278-3601 is our main number, or in Pottstown, 610-327-9203, or in Chester County, of course, 610-344-6350.
Okay, great. Joanne, thank you very much. It's been a great public
Thanks
service that you've
for
offered today, and thanks for taking the time out to be with us.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in. It's really a pleasure for us to bring you this show, and we appreciate your tuning in. I'd like to thank our TV team who put the show on the air for us today. Our show was produced by Pat Hagerman, and it was directed by Sean Hensey. We received technical assistance from John Crabtree, and the cameraman was Ben Warner. Our sponsor, as always, has been the Phoenixville Federal Bank and Trust, the leaders in community banking since 1912. I'm Lou Beccaria. It's really been a pleasure to be with you. And remember, folks, play nice and be kind to each other. I'll see you next time.